see here tonight for an unusual event. At least for me, the topic of the evening was pretty much unknown only a couple of months ago. It is about two men who met in the middle of the 19th century in Tbilisi. The middle of the 19th century, the age of Romanticism, Orientalism. And these two men were Friedrich Bodenstedt, a young German who was a teacher of German, first in Moscow, in Petersburg, and then he came upon the invitation of the Russian governor at the time in Tbilisi to teach. And he met an Azerbaijani poet. His name was Mirza Shafi Vazeh. And of course, every person in Azerbaijan knows Mirza Shafi Vazeh, but many others maybe don't, and I admit it freely, I didn't. So the two men met, and we want to tell you tonight the story of the two men and their relationship. We want to tell you the story of some poems, the 12 poems that Friedrich von Bodenstedt published in Germany after his return from Tbilisi, which became, today we would say, the bestseller. Friedrich von Bodenstedt was a star in his time in the 1850s and 60s and 70s. And his poems of Mirza Shafi had more than 169 or maybe 170 reprints, maybe 500,000 copies printed. He was a star. And so we want to tell you not only a story, but we want to present to you some of the poems of Mirza Shafi in Russian, in Azerbaijani, in English and in German. Just a little bit to give you an impression of what these poems are all about and the feelings that they are transporting. And I'm very happy that I have a number of people around me who made this all happen, and I'm very happy to have a special guest tonight who has become a dear friend over the years. Gabriele, please stand up briefly. Gabriele Wolfuß, she's the head of international relations of the city of Leipzig, and she's here for the visit to the Kurban Said restaurant close to the Shirvanshah Palace. We met Sabina. Sabina handed me a copy of the 12 songs of Mirza Shafi and the poems of Mirza Shafi, and when I started reading, I had this kind of idea which ended in this evening tonight. So I'm very grateful to her, and I'm happy to welcome you tonight. I went to Genje recently, and I'm so pleased to have so many guests from Genje among us tonight. It is not around the corner, but I appreciate that you came especially for this event, for Mirza Shafi and Friedrich von Bodenstedt, and I would just like to name Abusa Senarov from the executive in Genje, representing his governor tonight, and we are very honored to have you here. And of course, again, I was inspired by my visit in Genje because they have, of course, a Mirza Shafi museum. There I learned a lot also about Mirza Shafi. So, we are almost ready to start, but I would like to introduce our presenters and artists tonight. And we have Farida Mamedova as a soprano. She told me, when I told her about the poems of Mirza Shafi, yeah, I've sung them in the past already. I'm very pleased to welcome again on the piano Kerimova. And of course, I'm very pleased to welcome our, I call him narrator of the evening. He's a great entertainer. He's a star in Azerbaijan, Fuad Akhundov. Fuad will lead us through the evening, give us some context about the history of the two men, of the poems, of the age in the middle of the 19th century. And we will kind of change between some backgrounds, some poems, some songs sung and presented by Farida and Julia, and some of the poems read to you, just to give you an impression. So, again, a very warm welcome, and I wish you and all of us a very pleasant and interesting evening. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ambassador. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my most pleasure to kind of make a short introduction to the best part of today's evening, which is going to be our musical and poetic performance, with a kind of brief overview of a topic that really started great attention of His Excellency the Ambassador, but a topic that has been a kind of talk of the day for a generation of Azeri literarians, while academicians and kind of overall local academia. I got to this topic when I was still a student at the State University of Baku, when we were given the oral information about Mirza Shafi Vazeh and Friedrich from Bodenstedt in a very controversial manner of one guy stealing from another, one guy capitalizing on another, one guy benefiting from another. Well, in today's evening, with no claims for the truth in the last instance, because I'm not an expert in this field, and neither is any of us, but we'll try to turn the controversy into cooperation. We'll try to divert the juxtaposition into complementarity. So from controversy to complementarity, and from confrontation to cooperation. And in this approach, we see a proper place for each of these two men in the tandem. And the two heroes that we're going to speak about, in fact, they make a kind of dichotomy with each other, and in a way, well, no matter what some of the local scholars may speak about that, you can't imagine one without another. To a certain extent, well, one was propelling another, and the other was bringing the fame to the first. So, altogether, Mirza Shafi Vazeh and Friedrich from Bodenstedt were destined to share fame. Because we wouldn't know one without another, we wouldn't appreciate another without the one. And that is the overall spirit of today's night, which furthermore amends this historically and time-tested links between Azeri and German people way before Azerbaijan and Germany, by the way, were unified. But it was way before the First Republic of Azerbaijan, and way even before Bismarck, when there were cultural links. And these cultural links made Azerbaijan known in Europe, and Europe introduced to Azerbaijan. So today we're going to demonstrate an example of a very nice tandem that once you employ a different approach, produces a totally different outcome. So to start with, Mirza Shafi Vazeh. We don't know even the birth year of the gentleman. Well, varies from 1794 to 1796. Well, but this way or another, he was the person whose early destiny was already pretty much impacted by the Russian takeover of the region. He was 8 to 10 years old when his hometown of Ganja was overtaken by Russian troops of the Georgian, well, a Russian general of Georgian descent, Pavel Tsitsyan. And Mirza Shafi was actually originating from a very noble family. His father, Sadiq, was the architect of the last Khan of Ganja. Javad Khan, the person who was trying to his very best to put up the resistance to the Russian troops. And General Tsetsana was writing in, "I'm going to kill you on the wall of Ganja." And the response was, "You will find me dead on the wall of Ganja." And that was exactly what happened. Well, General Tsetsana found Javad Khan dead on the wall of Ganja, and he passed 3 decisions. One of them great, and 2 horrible. The first decision was the decision of a warrior. I was fighting with this guy, but I respect his personal courage. Javad Khan was buried with all the honors. So we have the tomb of Javad Khan as one of the main landmarks of Ganja today. But the second decision was, get rid of the wall so that no one resists me anymore. And Ganja lost its rules. And the gates of Ganja moved to Georgia, so now we've got a copy of them back. And the worst and the most humiliating decision was to rename Ganja into Elizabethpol. After the wife of the then Russian monarch, Alexander I, Yelizaveta Alexeyevna. So Mirza Shafi Vazeh was born in Ganja, but raised in Yelizaveta. Yet, well, things changed for his dad. There was no boss, there was no Khan, there were no orders, and once a very esteemed person but really socially downgraded. Yet he was trying his best to give good education to his son. So the youth of Mirza Shafi Vazeh passed in what still is adorning Ganja, the famous Shah Abbas Mosque, named after the famous Persian king of Azeri origin from the dynasty of Safavids. Well, and that was exactly the place where Mirza Shafi was given his basic education. And well, at that time, the best career he could ever pursue was a career of the cleric. But having immersed himself into clerical environment, he got vehemently opposed to clergy. And found the best way there to be a calligrapher. A calligraphist. So all his creative fantasy was kind of channeled into this very intricate handwriting style called Nastalik. So later on, Friedrich von Bodenstedt was actually reporting of his mentor that depending on the topic he was writing on, depending on the issue he tried to describe, depending on his mood and the quantity of wine he happened to get before, he could write one way, or another way, a third way, but the best and the nicest handwriting he employed was in the verses dedicated to ladies and wine. And he was the one who would be a tutor of Mirza Fuad Akhundov, one of the greatest intellectuals of Azerbaijan in the 19th century, who would later on become the interpreter to the Caucasian viceroy. But originally, being in Ganja, Mirza Fuad Akhundov, born in Nuha, Sheikhi, was taking classes from Mirza Shafi Vazeh in handwriting, in this beautiful and intricate style of Nastalik. And when Mirza Shafi Vazeh asked him, okay, what are your career goals, young man? The answer was, of course, to become a cleric. And the answer by Mirza Shafi was, if you want to be a cleric, you destine yourself to be a crook. You destine yourself to be a scoundrel. You destine yourself to be a rascal. And that was a person who was actually raised in a mosque. So Mirza Fatali said, why? Why is that, mentor? And the answer was, the moment religion becomes your source of profit, you lose the link with God. And that was a prophetic idea which actually turned Mirza Fatali off his career plans as a cleric and moved him into a totally different realm of philosophy that actually gained him the respect and esteem that we still feel to his day. But the person who showed him the way, who gave him the direction at a needed moment, was Mirza Shafi Vazeh. That being said, well, he had a great love story. A love story that never proved to be a success, but found its way into his poetry. A young man had fallen in love with the daughter of the Khan of Ganja, a lady whom he called Zuleika. She had a different name, Nufbaji or something else, but he recalled a kind of epic story of Zuleika and someone else, so for him, she was a Zuleika, in a way like Galatea, something inaccessible. But it was this inaccessibility of his love, because, well, he was for her a kind of plain person, although he won a poetry contest and won her kind of, well, attention and sympathy. Well, she was destined to be given to another Khan. A daughter of a Khan can become only a wife of a Khan. So she was married to an Bavarian Khan, and if she was, he tried to abduct her. They were caught. She was returned back to the court, and he was severely punished. But that found his way in his beautiful verses of love that we would like to actually continue our night with. When one fine day the golden gates of heaven fly open for believers' motley crowds, the sinner and the sinless, both together, will probably stand waiting, torn with doubts. Among the sinners, only I will be as calm and fearless as I always was in birth. Why should I vex myself when you, my life's sweet balm, already opened haven's gates for me on earth? Why should I vex myself when you, my life's sweet balm, already opened haven's gates for me on earth? He's not looking for havens over there. His haven in hell. His haven on earth. A very earthly haven of poetry by Mirza Shafi Vazeh. Cennet kapıları günün birinde mümin bendelere açılan zaman günahlı günahsız ham yerinde gözleyer kalbinde şüpheyle cuman bütün günahkarlar içinde tek men dünyanın duracağın kara korkusuz cennet kapılarını bu dünyada sen açmışsın yüzüne. Ey nazende bir kız. Не выбраться пора, но не хочу. Сойти с пути порога нету силы. Я грешник, но кружусь я в том кругу, который ты глаза чертил. Святой же душу берегут мою, и в рай все путь мне указывают властно. Глупцы! С любимой я уже раю, в ином раю не нужно мне согласно. Мне отборно, что грешно смотреть. Иду по дороге на карте не хочет. Влюбленный, я счастливый всех людей, которых несчастье не пророчит. The languages may differ, but the music of the poetry is the same. And now I'd like to give the floor to the performers whose language needs no translation. And we have this wonderful couple, a duo, that will present you Mirza Shafi Vazeh in a language that needs no translation for them.
I'm not sure whether I agree completely with Fuad that German is a language that doesn't need a translation. I know that some of you do speak and understand German, but even for those who don't, I would like to read 2 poems of Mirza Shafi in German, as they were published by Friedrich von Bodenstedt, just to give you an idea of that romantic epoch and the 2 romantic poems. The first is called Mein Herz schmückt sich mit dir. My heart adorns itself with you. Mein Herz schmückt sich mit dir, wie sich der Himmel mit der Sonne schmückt. Du gibst ihm Glanz und ohne dich bleibt es in dunklen Nacht erdrückt. Gleich wie die Welt all ihre Pracht verhüllt, wenn dunkel sie umfließt und nur, wenn ihr die Sonne lacht, zeigt, was sie Schönes in sich schließt. The second one is called Seh ich deine zarten Füßchen. When I see your tender little feet. Seh ich deine zarten Füßchen an, so begreif ich nicht, du süßes Mädchen, wie so viel Schönheit tragen kann, wie sie so viel Schönheit tragen kann. Seh ich deine kleinen Händchen an, so begreif ich nicht, du süßes Mädchen, wie sie solche Wunden schlagen können. Sehe ich deine rosigen Lippen an, so begreif ich nicht, du süßes Mädchen, wie sie einen Kuss versagen können. Sehe ich deine dunklen Augen an, so begreif ich nicht, du süßes Mädchen, wie sie nach mehr Liebe fragen können. Als ich fühle, sieh mich gnädig an, wärmer als mein Herz, du süßes Mädchen, wird kein Menschenherz dir schlagen können. Hör dies wonnenvolle Liedchen an, schöner als mein Mund, du süßes Mädchen, wird kein Mund dir Liebe klagen können.
Oh,
Yes, I reveal the beauty of operatic German to a great extent due to the poetry of Mirza Shafi Vazeh. But we're getting back to this gentleman who, after losing everything his family used to have in Ganja, even losing the name of his hometown, he moves to a place that used to be a kind of administrative and to a great extent cultural center of South Caucasus, bringing various cultures all together, the seat of Caucasian Viceroy, the city of Tiflis, which is Tbilisi, where Mirza Shafi moves in 1840, where he's offered a position of a junior teacher, like adjunct professor at one of the local high schools, the gymnasia, and kind of he's involved in some literary and academic research. He was involved in compiling the anthology of Azerbaijani poetry, working with grammar issues and so on and so forth. And interestingly enough, I wouldn't say he got that terribly famous, but he was admitted to the circle of the local intellectuals in Tbilisi, where he meets once his student Mirza Akhundov, the then interpreter to Caucasian Viceroy, Khanov, who was one of the greatest intellectuals of the 19th century, one of the leading intellectuals of Armenian side, who, as Mirza Shafi said, was the least Armenian he ever met, implying that the guy was not kind of obsessed with the idea of Greater Armenia from Mediterranean to the Caspian. So he was a normal person to deal with, and when you deal with normal people, well, ethnic discrepancies and differences do not really matter. So he was a person beyond this kind of ethnic boundaries, and the scope of his communication is a proof to that. But what is ever more important, it was in Tiflis when in 1844 he met an outstanding German intellectual, Friedrich von Bodenstedt, a person with the background of Hattingen and Munich universities, young. Well, actually, when we tried to track his kind of profile with Ambassador, we were amazed with one absolutely gorgeous fact. With Mirza Shafi, for obvious reasons, you don't know his birth year because he was born before the area became part of Russia, so his birth date was never fixed by Christian calendar. With Friedrich von Bodenstedt, it was all known to the day and maybe even to the hour. 22nd of April, 1819. The year, well, don't mix him with Lenin. Well, he would be born much later, and Hitler either. But this gentleman was born on the day when the first German Gemeindes, the first German settlements, were established in the Caucasus, in the vicinity of Mirza Shafi's hometown of Ganja. And these were Hellenendorf and Annenfeld. And while Ganja was renamed after the wife of Emperor Alexander I, Yelizaveta Alexeyevna, Hellenendorf and Annenfeld were named after the sisters of Russian Emperor, Anna Pavlovna and Yelena Pavlovna. And they both were established exactly on one and the same day, on Easter Tuesday of 1819, April 22nd. Because with German precision, well, they fixed the birth of community with the arrival of the first pastor. And that's exactly when the pastors arrived. And on the other side of the world, a boy was born to another intellectual family. Gosh, he was born together with the first German settlements in the Caucasus. And we decided with the master that that was fate. He was destined to come to the place where already you had some German roots. So he came, well, he was practicing in Moscow. He was the teacher of the kids of Count Golitsyn. But there was a kind of magnetic force of the Caucasus that was pushing young Friedrich von Bodenstedt to the Caucasus when he came, and he wanted to find a teacher in what was called Tatar language, which was the Russian name, because before the Russians got really deeply rooted in here, odd as it may seem, but Azeri was lingua franca. In a region that had such a plethora of ethnic groups, well, particularly North Caucasus and in the South Caucasus, you needed to have something easy, manageable, clear, straightforward. So in terms of vernacular, Azeri was second to none. So he understood, to have your way through in Tiflis, you should be fluent in Tatar, which is Azeri. And he was looking for a professor, for a tutor, and somehow, from the very first glance, when he met, Mirza Shafi was a man in his 50s. Something clicked in between them. Something really worked in between them, and what really attracted Friedrich von Bodenstedt with Mirza Shafi was that the gentleman was thinking outside the box. You know, he was not a trivial teacher or tutor, which probably with a good German tuition Friedrich von Bodenstedt was looking for. And he was ready to be a very highly disciplined German student. Yet, he met a tutor who said, you want to have good handwriting? Forget about the table. And we were always trained to write on the table. can only get a good handwriting, writing on your knees. Yeah, because that was the style of writing. The best handwriting is written on your knees. And he was comparing the style of writing in Nastalik with the art of archery. Each move is an arrow thrown to your target. So he trained Friedrich von Bodenstedt to write on his knees. Wow, and he was breaking all the traditions, he was breaking the rules. He was saying, I can't understand what printed book is. Printed book is dead. The book is only something that is handwritten. Yeah, that was his approach, which ultimately will backfire against him, because there was not a single word by Mirza Shafi printed in his mother tongue, and the only kind of manuscript that he had handed to Friedrich Bodenstedt, and that got lost, which led to further kind of controversies in the years to come. But all in all, the man was breaking the standards, the man was breaking the rules, yet they were kindred souls. They were the people who ultimately started talking the same language, which was not only linguistic, as every language that Bodenstedt was actually pretty successful with, it was the language of commonly shared values. And that was something that turned a mentor and a student into conference, into a kind of tandem and fermented union that later on would find its way in 1001 Days in the Orient, published by Friedrich von Bodenstedt in 1850, followed by the songs by Mirza Shafi in 1851. And gosh, the man was not even in his 30s when he published that. Well, in his early 30s, but he propelled himself through Mirza Shafi and his poetry, but getting this kind of tutorship of Mirza Shafi was as a springboard. He made himself known in Europe. He really found his way with Mirza Shafi Vazeh, and he said, well, the man I met was not broadly and wide known, well known in Tiflis. No, neither was he pursuing the goal of being well known, of being quoted, of being a popular guy. No. But a very important note by Friedrich von Bodenstedt was that he was known by a few, but those few who knew him had a great adoration of him. So it was not the matter of quantity, but quality, that built the relationship, that actually worked into something great. A great friendship, a great unity through wine. And wine was the second important topic for Mirza Shafi Vazeh after the theme of love. Accompanied by wine, attended by a rose, with pretty lips that hardly ever close, except to favor me with a delicious kiss. Let Satan have my soul. I'll have my bliss. So their bliss, their enjoyment was through wine, was through poetry, was through commonly shared values, well, which oftentimes didn't go along with the religious tenets, and I would say oftentimes they went against the religious tenets. But it was this kind of sacred heresy that made the verses of Mirza Shafi Vazeh so beautiful in a variety of languages. Я помню заверение пророка, что существует рай, хоть и далеко. И будет счастлив всяк туда попасть, кто в жизни не видал ни страсти, ни порока, но может статься, что пророк не прав. И мы не поняли его зарока, и счастье в жизни так и не познав, ее мы проживем, и в том не будет рока. Я не согласен, не таков мой нрав. Безгрешным быть я не даю зарока, к устам любимой, как вино прибав, все не запью дорогого срока. Love and wine. Great mix, and the road to success, and the path to your bliss. But had some absolutely gorgeous verses which, due to his, original manuscript being lost or misplaced by Friedrich von Bodenstedt, we don't know that well, but that got lost. But you had some really nice Russian translations, which I would really make a recipe for a smart use of recipe written. Well, I have it only available in Russian, and I'm not Friedrich from Bodenstedt to interpret it into Russian, but we need to find the original in Azerbaijan. In Russian, it sounds absolutely fascinating. The way you should take your wine. Умение пить не всем дано. Умение пить искусство. Тот не умел, кто пьет вино без мысли и без чувства. Вино несет и яд, и мед, и рабство, и свободу. Цены вину не знает тот, кто пьет вино, как воду. Люби вино, как я люблю. В любви своей не кайся, не зазнавайся во хмелю, но и не опускайся. Одних вино влечет в полет, других сшибает сходу. Цены вину не знает тот, кто пьет вино, как воду. Рождает в нас пьянящий дух и блажь, и откровение, в нем созидание исток и жажда разрушения. Вино поблажек не дает тем, кто ему угоден, порой себя и бережет, кто пьет вино, как воду. But there is a type of wine that you can drink as water or anything else, and this is the wine of music that we're talking about. died pretty suddenly. In fact, his death was both sudden and to a certain extent determined. The reason of his death was mundane, ghastly problems, with a certain type of treatment which is always based on diet. But you can't impose a diet on a poet who is imbued with love. That's exactly what happened to Mirza Shafi. He just denied the treatment. And while he was prohibited to eat grape and drink what grape produces wine, he could never comply with that. So, a gastric infection left him dead. And while we don't know his birth date and birth year, the date of his death is so far unknown. And that's what we get from the acts of the Caucasian Archaeological Commission, because, like I said, he wasn't known to a great kind of circle of people, but he was known to a certain kind of circuit of academicians, and the society that he was known in is a great reference to him. So there is a report. On the 16th day of November, 1852 in Tiflis, passed away Mirza Shafi Vazeh. And now, listen to that. Who became widely famous due to a well-known work by Bodenstedt. Well, not because, well, he was kind of needing someone's help. He was not pursuing this glory. He was not pursuing this fame, but there was something in his legacy that needed to be delivered to a broader audience. And he who made it happen made Vazeh famous and made himself famous. So that was the mission of Friedrich. At that time, Bodenstedt, later on, would become von Bodenstedt when his words, like Ambassador noted earlier, were printed 170 times in all the variety of languages of Europe and brought him an enormous fame. And the person who never happened to, well, actually graduate from the University of Munich became the professor of his ungraduated alma mater. Well, how does it make sense? And the person was invited in 1867 to the court theater of Meiningen. Yeah, where he became a director of the theater, and that won him his title von. And Meiningen, actually, I'm not very good with geography, but it's not far from Schwabia, where the Germans were pretty much the same area as the South is. Now, very close to the place where the Germans were moving to the Caucasus. So having made his trip to the Caucasus, Friedrich von Bodenstedt got propelled back to become widely and probably known. And the greatest test in life is the test of glory, which sometimes will pass and sometimes will fail. And let's not blame those who fail in passing it, because glory is worse than that. You know, Mirza Shafi was exchanged glory for wine and died from intestinal problem just because he was fine, he was sufficient. Friedrich von Bodenstedt was intoxicated with his glory. At a certain moment, well, it pushed him to claim his own authorship for the verses that were earlier presented as Mirza Shafi Vazeh. But I have to tell you one thing. I'm an interpreter. Well, happen to be. And there is a good saying. Interpreter in prose is a slave. Interpreter in poetry is a competitor. You never know who is better, the original writer or the interpreter. So he was a proper competitor. He was a person capable to get the spirit and convey it and make German sound Oriental beautiful. And make Orient known in Germany. So actually he made the bridge in between the two cultures. So the bridge between Caucasus and Europe happened to be the bridge between Azeri and German cultures. Azeri poet and German scholar, which is very indicative, and no surprise we have this evening today in German Embassy. Thanks again, Ambassador. Well, this way or another, well, Friedrich Bodenstedt von Bodenstedt made Mirza Shafi Vazeh known widely and broadly. In 1890, Leo Tolstoy writes a letter to Afanasy Fett course, God in Russian, but what they translated from the original, we don't know. Mind of God through German translation. This way or another, there was a promotion. And Mirza Shafi was got known among the scholars, among the writers, among the composers and musicians. Anton Rubinstein is writing a music for his Persian song to be performed by Shalapin. I should have had him to sing his early songs as an 18-year-old boy in Baku in 1891 when he was left by a theater and was working as a porter in the local harbor, but that's a totally different story. And when he got back to Baku in 1915, 26 years after, it was the Shalapin who got into the Baku. Well, and this growth of Shalapin in Baku was so evident that he said, for the life I was born in Volga, for the music I was born in the Caucasus. And he was gladly performing the Persian song by Mirza Shafi Vazeh, composed by Anton Rubinstein. So altogether, it brings us to this unique and kind of, well, inseparable, unbendable tandem of Friedrich von Bodenstedt and Mirza Shafi Vazeh, who were destined to share their fame. And fame is enough for many people to share. There is something that you never lose by sharing. There is something you never lose by sharing. It's the success from your creativity, from your poetry. That is a blanket that covers everything. So in this case, well, there is a great tandem where one is known thanks for another. When one is providing the food for the other to make it palatable in a totally different culture, and there is a bridge of cultures through this type of tandems. And frankly speaking, do we have that many tandems? Not too many. All the more valuable are those few that we have. And therefore, in hometown of Peine, where Friedrich von Bodenstedt was born, there is the school where he was a student, Wilhelmsschule. And in 2010, two gifted Azeri sculptors, Rustamov brothers, erected a plaque at the entrance to the school where Friedrich von Bodenstedt took his first classes, where he was trained to write at the table, never on the knee, and to read the books that were published but are forgotten before he got to the place where he was trained to write on your knee and to get the books that were handwritten to be written in stone, to become the legacy of the generations to come. And that's why their verses are kind of sounding into, ignoring all I've given to the madness, and troubles in my heart no longer strong. Youth has returned, and I am full of gladness, all thanks to wine and love, and you, my song. Drink wine, Mirza Shafi, and waste no time. Intoxicate yourself with women, wine, and song, for only when drunk you come in streams my rhyme, and so my songs be drunk, become along. So the drunken songs of Mirza Shafi and Friedrich von Bodenstedt are going to be followed by our German ladies.
inspired by the poetry, the music, and the story of Mirza Shafi and Friedrich von Bodenstedt. And I'm so grateful to our three artists tonight, Julia, Farida, and Fuad, to have brought this to us so that we could almost feel ourselves back in this epoch. And I hope that you will now follow my invitation and pay tribute to Mirza Shafi Vazeh by sharing a glass of wine with us. And on this note, I would like to tell you a little story about this new wine from Schenk here, which is called Annenfels. This is a beautiful story also about the wine, and the poetry, and the music, and Germany in Azerbaijan, and the relationship between two men, which is complementary, or which was complementary, and which has brought us, I hope you will agree, a very enjoyable evening. So please join us for a glass of wine and hopefully interesting conversations. Thank you again so much to our three artists.